I'm so glad that you're checking out this video, and I want to welcome you. My name is Andy. I'm the lead pastor at Oak Haven. By now, I'm sure that you know that. If you found your way to this video series about church membership, I'm just so grateful that God has brought you along to this point in your journey and gotten you connected at our church. I just wanted to introduce this idea. Instead of doing a series of classes where you have to come and we might have to provide childcare for you, we wanted to deliver the great content of what it means to be a member at Oak Haven Church to you. And I hope to do it in a really creative way. I'm going to be your host, and I'll be taking you around to different places and interviewing different people, and we're going to go through the history of the church and what we believe and what makes us unique, our identity as a church. I also want to introduce you to the essential piece of church membership that is you and your role in becoming a member at Oak Haven. So I hope you can join us. I'm putting together this series of videos. There's going to be 6 of them all told. If you watch all of them and engage in our process of becoming a member, and we'll have a chance to meet with you face to face, this will be a great part of your spiritual journey. So we hope you can join along. I'm here at the Anderson Center and about to go in to meet some of the Converge North Central staff. This is the movement denomination that we are a part of at Oak Haven, and it's going to be really informative to hear what they have to say about our church movement. Today you have the great privilege of meeting Rob Boyd, at least by video, and Rob has been around for a few years. And Rob, can you introduce yourself? Tell us what your official role is here with the North Central office.
My official role here, I do 2 major things. One is I interview candidates that want to be pastors in our district, and the other is I run an organization that's affiliated with our central called Staff of the Pastor, which helps pastors and their immediate families in therapy sessions and in schooling needs, those kinds of things. Those are the 2 things I still do. Those 2 things I've done for many years.
So we wanted to talk a little bit about history because you've been around our movement for a long, long time.
And I'm happy to talk about that. In the 40s, Baptist General Conference,
yes,
they know,
yeah,
okay, moved into their own world mission program.
Mm-hmm.
And in the 50s, they had a real push for that. Said 55 missionaries by 1955. And my wife and I became missionaries at Baptist General Conference in 59. We spent the next 11 years in Argentina, northwest Argentina.
Mm-hmm. So we can conduct the rest of this interview in Spanish.
Sí, señor. Hacerlo.
Muy bien.
I thought about this answering this question because my wife and I, as part of the team in Argentina, BGC Missions team, mirrored what was happening in the whole conference at that time. Mm. That is, we were the only non-Minnesotan, non-Bethel, non-Swede surname of all the missionaries that were there. All the rest of them were all of those things.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
So they were, the conference is expanding outside of its Swedish roots, and you were one of the first.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that's what was happening in the 60s in the whole denomination, okay? And the fact that they actually received me, they actually tolerated me, should be a help to people who are not those same things that we were not.
Right.
That to be welcomed in Converge.
So it was the mid-60s when our church got its start, 1965.
And we were in Argentina the whole decade of the 60s.
Yeah, so you were out of the country, but as you think back of that time, what were the kinds of things that were happening in the conference? What kind of movements were happening through that time frame?
I was separated from that,
Right.
and we're from the east, and went to Gordon instead of Bethel. I didn't really have a lot of connections with the conference.
Sure.
Except that we were
missionaries.
We were BC missionaries,
Mm-hmm.
and so our face was in all the books of all across the country, well, whatever. And as you know, what was happening in the country in the '60s.
Well, I wasn't born yet, so I don't actually know.
You have heard about what was happening. People say
It was a time of...
It was a great time to be in Argentina, not to be here.
Time of turmoil in the
Yeah.
Vietnam War during
Yeah.
that time frame. Yeah.
In fact, interestingly, when we first went to Argentina, we had our two little girls were born, well, just 8 months old and 3 years. And the people here said, "Are you going to take those girls to the middle of South America? You know, aren't you afraid to do that?" And guess what the Argentines said when we were coming back in 1970?
Are you going to take those little girls back to the United States?
With all the assassinations and everything else that were happening and the race riots? Are you going to take them back? That's very interesting.
Yeah, so this is a very interesting time frame that a church, a little church in Ham Lake, we were Ham Lake Baptist, just getting started, and this little seed of the gospel of Jesus going out and reaching people for Christ during that time frame. That's so strong of our foundation. And we want to hold on to those roots.
Absolutely. Well, we came back in 1970. And I became associate pastor in Spring Lake Park Baptist Church, which is around the corner.
Just down the street.
That was our introduction to Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and what was happening here.
Well, I'm very grateful for your ministry because I met you when I was looking for a church to go to, and then I landed where I am now at Oak Haven.
Yeah, right here.
So that's been beneficial for me and my family. And you are a part of that journey, and you have also ministered to me through the staff of the pastor. You put on that yearly retreat at Trout Lake, and my wife and I have come to that, and
right.
That's been a great time to disconnect from the rest of the world and meet some other pastors and their spouses.
Right. My wife and I have done that for about the last 16 years.
Hey there, I'm here at Ham Lake Baptist Retreat Center. You can see the sign next to me here. I'm knee-deep in snow on this beautiful wintry day, and I wanted to talk to you about the history of our community, where Oak Haven Church is in Ham Lake. Ham Lake was not always called that. It used to be called Glen Cary. You might notice Glen Cary Church just down the road on Highway 65, and that's because Scottish settlers came and settled our community back in the 1850s. They named it Glen Cary because it was a beautiful area, and that means beautiful valley in Scottish. All of their homes burned down in a community-wide fire, and they all moved away because they had nowhere to live. And about 10 years later, in 1866, some Scandinavians came and settled this area. They couldn't pronounce Glen Cary because of their Scandinavian heritage, and so they renamed the community after the shape of the lake, which was called Ham Lake. If you fly over Ham Lake, you'll see that it looks like the profile of a ham. It actually has an island in the middle that looks like the ham bone. So we have this beautiful heritage of our community where we minister and we want the gospel to go forth. So now you know a little bit more of the history of Ham Lake, our community, where we minister and we want the gospel to go forth as a light into the darkness. So I wanted to share with you, this is a special booklet that was put together in the year 2015 to celebrate 50 years of ministry, 50 years of God's faithfulness. And we had a great team that from the church that put this together, and it shows a lot of the history of the church. There's the very first building that we'll talk about a little bit later, and some of the people that were here from the very beginning that are pictured here, and some of the history of the church. And this goes through ministry highlights, and you can even see some familiar faces. There's Pastor Lee there that you'll recognize, and a lot of the other ministry staff from throughout the years. And this was a fantastic time in the life of our church that we celebrated in the year 2015. I had just been named the new pastor. Our family hadn't even moved here yet because we had this celebration in May, but we came for it, and it was a great time of celebration. A lot of the people from the history of our church came back. People that have moved away came back to celebrate with us, and we just celebrated God's goodness and his faithfulness to us. We've had a rich tradition and history here at Oak Haven, and we just really want to celebrate what God has done and what he continues to do in the future. So today I'm here with Cindy Birkland. We're actually in Cindy and Jim's house, and it's a lovely setting. It's a beautiful spring day today, and I wanted to meet with Cindy because she has a really unique perspective on the history of the church, because she has been at the church since the very beginning. Cindy, you must have been a baby.
I was. You could do the math and figure it out.
So it was your parents and another couple, Don and Marion Boostrom, that were really key ingredients in getting Ham Lake Baptist Church up and running. So tell us a little bit about that.
When I was in 4th grade, we had actually moved to Ham Lake. And coincidentally, Don and Marion Boostrom and another couple named Marvin Sybil Fuller also bought land on the same street. And we were all going to church at First Baptist Coon Rapids at the time. And in the fall of 1964, Jack Bergeson from Baptist General Conference contacted Marion Boostrom and asked if they would be interested in starting a church. Keep in mind at the time, Don and Marion and my dad were 33 years old, and my mom was 31, and Marvin Sybil, I think, were about 28, 29 years old.
So these are just young people, young adults,
raising young kids,
young families, getting that church going. And so as it got started, I know 1965 was the year, and the first thing that happened was you had a baptismal service. The church bought land in those early days, but before the building was built, where were you meeting?
We started, before we were incorporated as a church, we started with prayer meetings, and we met at our home. We met in Don and Marion's home. We met at Fuller's home. We just rotated around. And by that time, I was in 6th grade, and for a little history, McKinley School was being built that year also.
Oh,
that
so
our church was
our
being
church
built.
is just the same age as McKinley.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then soon after that, after the church was built, we had Sunday evenings. No, we hadn't built the church yet. We met at McKinley School, and we met Sunday evenings in Don and Marion's basement, and outgrew that. And then we ended up at Ham Lake City Hall, which was not much bigger than Boostrom's basement. And at that time, you still had Sunday evening services. And then in probably about 66, we built the church and started meeting at the church.
This must have been a really exciting time to be a part of this new thing. I mean, you start out meeting in a brand new elementary school. And as a kid, did you go to McKinley for a year?
I did.
Or?
I was a 6th grader at McKinley the year it opened.
Yeah, so to have your church also be in that school for a time, and then you have a brand new building. I mean, we think of the tree house and that part of the building as old now. It needs some updating.
Yeah.
It needs to be remodeled. But at that time, it was brand new and shiny, and all the new people coming.
And it was, from my perspective, as a junior higher, if somebody came visiting and they had kids, especially junior high school, we were just so excited. At that time, every Sunday, you went to somebody's house for dinner. Every single Sunday, you were at somebody's house, and the community was very strong. We were very close-knit.
Well, you're like a living history. When it came time to celebrate the 50th anniversary, you played a key role in that, and there were lots of other people involved too, but you helped to organize that effort. So can you tell us about the 50th anniversary celebration that was just in 2015, and what it was like to go through all the history and pull that together. And as you remembered, the pastors who have served our church, maybe walk us through that also.
Pastor Ron Sari had approached me maybe a year before our 50th anniversary and asked if I would consider doing it. And that was just too daunting to me. And I initially said no. And then I realized that basically I'm one of the few that has the history. And we gathered together quite a group of people. And Diana Olson especially, she and I would spend hours and hours looking through church records and church pictures. And I think it took us so long because we'd find something and then we'd have to sit and talk about it and cry about it and
tell the stories.
Yeah. Do you remember when that happened? And so it was a very special time for me. And even afterwards, we still found some pictures that I knew had existed, that somehow had disappeared. And one day they magically appeared. And they were pictures from my baptism. And I think one of the first gatherings. And so just the memories. And when I think about our pastors, Pastor Hammer baptized me. And then our next pastor was Terry Port. And he was there until I had started college. So he was there through my high school graduation, starting college. And we joke because I was their first babysitter. And their son is now a professor at Bethel. And then Richie Peterson was our next pastor. And he actually married Jim and I.
Oh, okay.
And then Fred Tuma came, and when Fred came, Laurel was 6 months old, and I still have pictures of all these little ones. We had quite a youth group then, hanging on his legs. They just adored him. And through his 28 plus years at Oak Haven, Ham Lake at the time, he dedicated both Laurel and Aaron, and he performed their wedding ceremonies. And then when Tim Walker came, I joked with Tim because Cale was an infant, and I told him that his first summer I never heard a sermon because I was memorizing Cale's face during church. And then after Tim left, Pastor Ron was with us for a couple of years, and then you arrived.
Here I am.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been 10 years since Pastor Fred retired.
I know.
It's amazing.
I was looking at that earlier today, and I thought, that can't be, but Cale will be 10, and that's right when he was...
Fred was here a few weeks ago,
Yep.
and he said, I've been away 10 years now. I can't believe it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's hard to believe.
Well, you've seen a lot of changes over the years of our church.
Oh, yes.
But we have such a strong foundation with our history, and that's why I think it's so important to connect the future to the past, and that we can learn from the living legend and all the memories and stories that you have tucked away in your brain.
Oh.
It's a beautiful thing, and the 50th anniversary celebration was an incredible event. I was brand new, hadn't even moved here yet, but we came to be a part of it. And just talk a little bit about your experience of having people come who'd been away for a long time, and just what that was like, that 50th celebration weekend.
I was amazed. The committee we had we'd spent hours and hours putting together lists of people that we knew needed to be invited and looking for addresses, but we never really knew for sure who would show up. And I can remember Kathy Kolb wanted to be a greeter, and then she said, Cindy, you really need to be at the door because you will know these people when they come in. And the people that came in, I was in tears. There was, I can't remember now which family. I think it was the Snyder family. They all walked in and came from Alabama and
oh my goodness,
all over the place. And Dale was part of the music, and there were just so many people that came in that we were surprised to see, and it was just such a treat to see them. And by the end of the weekend, I was exhausted because I'd spent so much time talking, and I would sit down. Oh, there's somebody else. It was great. It was so much fun, and the committee that helped the weekend together. It's just amazing the things that they did.
Yeah. Well, it was a real highlight for the church.
It really was.
And for people that are maybe watching this video who even haven't been around since 2015, I think it's important to understand our history and our foundation, our connection to our conference. You know, that the church was really birthed out of an idea from the conference, and these young families and young parents that were really busy in life, but took a step of faith and got the church started. And we wanted to celebrate all of that and all the people who were involved over 50 years. And we look forward to the 100-year anniversary. Start planning now, Cindy.
No, I already told Laurel where all the papers are. So in 50
there you go.
years,
She's been here her whole life. So
she has been.
That's good. Well, thanks for talking with me today. And it's a treat for everybody who's going to watch this video to learn from all your years of serving the Lord at Oak Haven Church. So I wanted to share with you this really interesting document from our history. It's actually a drawing from one of our church members, Don Boostrom, of the expansion, the very first expansion of our church building. And you can see behind me, that's actually what we built. So the original sanctuary is here with the sloped roof, and then we added on spaces for children and adult Sunday school, some church offices. This all happened in the early 70s. And this document actually has the information about the banquet, they raised the funds, the time of planning, and the time of financing, and the time for investment that the congregation went through during that time when they were building and growing, and God's people flourished here at Oak Haven Church.